Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Lazy Entrepreneur. We're your hosts, Sam and Emma Priestley.
Hello.
And today we're actually recording from a proper recording studio.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? It's a bit intimidating, really. We're sat here with proper headphones on, and opposite this glass window is someone who actually knows what they're doing. Rather than me sat on my laptop trying to edit the audio. So hopefully that will solve any of the audio issues we've had in our previous episodes. And should be good. And we're in Thailand as well, so it's quite a cool recording studio. We've got a bit of art on the walls. Yeah, it's nice.
It's very cool. I'm impressed we've made this happen.
Yeah. So Emma, today what I wanted to do is tell you a few stories about professional gamblers and ways in which they've sort of beat the system. And they're all completely different stories. They're not something I've done personally. They're kind of famous people, and most of them will have a documentary you can go and watch behind them, or at least articles you can read about it. They're kind of the mythology around this professional gambling world, and they're really varied. For each one, what I'm going to do is tell you the story, then hopefully bring it back to something that I've done personally or some of my friends have done, tell you how, the skills or the loopholes that they found, how they translate to other forms. So as a listener, hopefully you'll find it interesting, because this sort of stuff I absolutely love. I love talking about this sort of stuff. I love hearing about it. I'm a bit of a nerd like that. But also it gives me inspiration. So when you hear about a strategy someone's used in one direction, it inspires me to maybe see how I can apply that to something completely different. And maybe it'll do the same to you. And as always, Emma has agreed to be the long-suffering listener.
As I've been described by one of your listeners before, whenever you talk about gambling.
Yeah. Very good of you.
Well, I think someone said I had a lot of patience. I don't think his partner would put up with him talking about gambling that much.
Pretty much. But also means you can ask if I go off on too big a tangent or start
that I don't
going
understand.
too technical, you can bring me back. I can look at your kind of frown or your snoozy face if I go too deep. All right, let's get going. So we've got 5 stories to tell you. The first one is about a Christian Bible study group in America who formed a team and started going around the US card counting.
Wow.
So blackjack, it's a game, you've probably heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you played it?
No.
No, it doesn't really matter for the story, but it's a game you play against the casino, against the house. The aim is to get to 21. You see it in a lot of films. The rules don't really matter, but what you should know is that the house has a small edge normally, so around the 0.5% or 1% if you're playing perfect strategy. And by counting cards, so knowing what came before in the game, you can do some mental arithmetic and then bet higher when you have an edge as a player.
Yep.
So very simply. And the casinos know this is going on. And so there's a film about it. You've probably seen 21 or heard about it. It's about an MIT blackjack team, and it's very glamorous. They're wearing beautiful gowns, and they're winning millions in a single day. And it's very Hollywood. And it was actually funded by one of the casinos to make this film, because to try and convince people to come in when they know actually it's a bit more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Whereas actually this Christian card counting group, there's actually a documentary that follows them over the course of about 3 years. And it shows actually what it's like to be in one of these card counting teams. And it's far from glamorous. What they do is they have a very simple strategy that anyone can follow to count cards, but it's so obvious that they end up getting kicked out very quickly and banned. And so what they'll do is they'll drive to a casino somewhere randomly, maybe a 10-hour drive from wherever they're living. They'll play hours on end until they get kicked out. And sometimes they get kicked out in half an hour. Sometimes they'll play 12 hours straight. And then they'll move on to the next one. And they do this over the course of years.
Wow.
And it's quite interesting because the problems they come across is so similar to all the stuff that we used to do. So when you watch a film like 21 about the MIT blackjack team, it makes it out that the challenge as a card counter is intelligence. They're only looking for geniuses, people who are on the top end of the maths class at one of the top universities in the world.
Well, yeah, that's what you assume by MIT.
That's what you assume. But that's not the problem that they're faced. The problem they're faced is that the casino has the right to ban you from playing. And they actually don't mind card counters, people doing it badly. But as soon as you do it well, you get shut down, you get kicked out. So their challenge is how can we either remain under the radar or distribute ourselves among as many casinos as possible without getting caught, which is exactly what we were doing with my arbitrage and value betting. We got all our podcast episodes on that, but basically what we were doing is we had kind of systems in place that would find discrepancies between different bookmakers on how they valued horse racing and things like that, and we would go and bet. We were getting 7% returns. And people hear that, they say, 7% return. If you did that every day for a year, you've got £1 billion. Well, it doesn't work like that, because the challenge is not finding these opportunities. The challenge is getting the money away when the bookie can tell you you're out.
Yeah, because you're going to be successful, so it's not getting caught.
Yeah.
Being successful.
The challenge is not get caught, which is a very different skill set to finding these opportunities. And we did a whole episode, it was on Sharbing, where we had a group of people, runners, who would give them big wads of cash, and they'd run around London in disguises, going to different bookmakers, placing bets on different horse racing.
Definitely one of my favourite stories.
Until they got banned.
It's so silly.
And like, the more I talk to people, the more I hear similar stories with similar problems, where they find like an opportunity. The reason the opportunity exists is because the person who is given the opportunity has the right to stop you from taking advantage of it. And so the way people get around that is by building these huge, complex logistical networks. So if you want to learn more about that, there's Holy Rollers. It's on Netflix. I quite enjoyed it. Yeah, it was awesome.
Who would have thought a Bible study group would be trying to make money from blackjack?
Yeah. So the same problem we had with the Sharbing, where we're giving essentially strangers large wads of cash to go and bet, and then expecting them to tell the truth about how much they were making, and then giving it back to us, is the problem they had. They're like, we're all Christians, we're all in the same Bible study group, we can trust each other.
Can they?
And then as it goes on, they start saying, well, our numbers aren't adding up. Like, mathematically, we should be making more money than we are. And yeah, I won't ruin the ending for you, but it's well worth a watch. So that's the first one. The second one, I want to tell you about a guy called Don Johnson. So this guy, I don't know much about him.
Sounds very American.
He is an American, and I think he's always been like a professional gambler. And after the financial crash in 2008, the casinos around the world started trying to entice in more high rollers. And so they'd offer comps, they'd offer deals to try and get you in. And so what he did is he went around to different casinos, playing them off each other to try and negotiate the best possible deal that they would give him. So, for instance, something he was able to do was get offered a 20% refund on all his losses that exceeded $500,000.
Whoa.
So to a casino, that might sound like quite a good idea. You can, if he loses $500,000, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
We'll give him $100,000 back,
Yeah.
but that's amazing. But actually, when, what did I just tell you? That blackjack typically has a 0.5% edge. And so what you could do is, if you're clever, is you can play this high variance game, but if you win, you're basically doubling your money. And if you lose, you're getting 20% back.
Yeah.
So mathematically, you can actually build yourself a player edge by taking into account these kind of comps.
Yeah.
So that was one thing he had. He got this 20% on refund on losses. He also got game changes made to the game of blackjack that he was playing at, to the point where he had a player edge. So not only did he have these huge backstops, but he also managed to get himself a player edge. And in about 6 months, in 2011, he took Tropicana for $6 million. Borgata.
What are these?
These are casinos.
Casinos.
Borgata for $5 million and Caesars for $4 million in about 6 months.
Whoa.
Just by finding these little things. And you know what? These offers are exactly the same as what you do if you're doing match betting, which is like something that loads of people do nowadays, but at a very small scale. And back when I was doing a bit more of these casino bonuses, these kind of 20% refunds was stuff was our bread and butter. So a typical offer would be is they'll give you 20% of your refund on your losses. You'd go in, you'd put £1,000 on one spin of roulette. If it wins, you would draw and you've made £1,000. If it loses, well, you've lost, but you get some money back. And we're doing that all day, every day. And some of those still exist. I've got friends who still take advantage of those sort of offers.
Mm.
And they're one of these things where like you really wouldn't recommend it for a normal person because the variance can wipe you out. Like you've got to be willing. You make money by having huge amounts of variance.
Yeah, you've got to be able to have those huge losses.
So the third person I want to tell you about is Richard Jarecki. So this guy I think he was a maths professor, but I'm not sure on that. Anyway, he worked out that in a perfect world, a roulette table has a house edge. So a roulette table is a spinning wheel. You've got numbers, and they're all split like red and black.
Yeah.
And so you can bet on red, and if it lands on red, you'll win. If you bet on black, it lands on black, you win. And then the house edge comes, and there's also a number 0, which nobody wins. So very simple.
Yeah.
And what he worked out is that spinning wheel, it should land on each number
set amount of times.
It should be even across all of them.
Yes.
What he thought to himself was that actually these are machines made by humans, spun every day for years. The ball bearings are going to get a little bit worn.
Ooh.
Maybe they're on a slight angle. So what him and his wife did is they went round and they just recorded thousands of spins of each roulette wheel.
Whoa.
To give themselves a mathematical distribution of which numbers come up the most. Kept doing that till he worked out the one table would have a mathematical advantage, and then bet on it until he won. And again, he made this was back in the 60s, so quite a while ago. He went around the French Riviera, where their version of roulette has a better player. It's more on the player advantage than the American ones, and won a lot of money. And the casinos knew he was doing it, and to throw him off, he made up these stories about using supercomputers in London to try and like analyse it, and trying to work out what he was up to. But really, all he was doing was just marking down.
Yeah, it was really analog.
Yeah, really analog. So I thought that was quite cool.
That's so much work, though.
It's so much work, but it reminds me of like some of the stuff we used to do again, where we would analyse games because each casino is releasing slot machines all the time. There's new ones every week. There's different types of bingo games with different rule sets, and often they don't really think through them all properly. And so what we do is we do huge analysis on the rule sets behind the different games, and then on some of them run these distribution tables to try and work out if any of them had they programmed incorrectly and given a player edge.
Wow.
And we found a few. I made quite a bit of money on a bingo game. We found that actually had a player edge, and bingo is the most boring game in the world.
It's so random.
What you do is you just buy a ticket, and then you wait, and then after the game's over, you see whether you've won or lost. So you can automate that quite easily. So we'd have these automation of buying thousands of bingo tickets all at a go on a game we knew had a player edge to slowly make a bit of money over time. Again, these things you find, and then as soon as you start abusing them, basically, they change the rules.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they're short term.
And just like that, roulette technology has got a lot better now.
Yeah.
That now you probably can't go around and sit there with your maths paper.
And they replace the machines, and they do maintenance.
Yeah. And they're a bit better.
Yeah.
But what else is there that someone might have... Like, video poker was a big one in Vegas for a while, where people would work out, when it had a player edge. What they'd sometimes do is they'd go and buy one from the manufacturer and work out how to crack it. So you'd have these teams where they'd buy all the new slot machines, like the physical ones here in casinos, and analyse them in order to find where there might have been something wrong or there might have been some sort of mistake. And there's been a few famous ones which went on for years where they found like one machine that had a problem with it. Because all you need to do is find one and then just keep abusing it and abusing it and abusing it. And then you get into the sort of murky world is, maybe some of the people who are manufacturing it were inputting backdoors into these machines.
Ooh.
So you don't know.
Wow.
So on to another one. This is something I told you yesterday, I think, as like a little warm-up to this podcast. This is Jerry and Marge Selby, a retired couple who used to own a corner shop, like a little, like a newspaper shop in America, and were quite into... the lottery. And there's the big lottery we have in the UK, National Lottery, but there's also loads of smaller ones. And what they worked out is that based on the set of rules for the lottery in their local town, was that if the jackpot had built to a certain amount, basically a player edge occurred, where you'd actually make money in the long term by playing the lottery. And so obviously you've got to play the lottery a lot in order to win the jackpot. It's quite high variance. So what they would do is they would buy every single number in the lottery.
Whoa.
And this started small, but it built up to the point where they would spend $500,000 on lottery tickets.
That's insane how they got that amount of money together.
Yeah, they built a proper limited liability company where they got investors from their friends.
Wow.
And it built into this huge system. And then, like, how do you buy a lottery ticket? Well, you go into a corner shop.
Yeah.
You hand over your dollar bill note, and you get a lottery ticket. Well, how do you think you buy 50,000 lottery tickets?
I have no idea.
So they have to go from corner shop to corner shop, getting sacks of lottery tickets.
Whoa.
And so for them, actually, the maths behind doing it wasn't that complicated. But the work would
Logistics.
be buying all lottery tickets. They said they reckon for each one it would take about 10 days in a row, 10 hours a day, just to sorting the lottery tickets after they've got it.
10 hours a day for 10 days.
So obviously they'd get their mates round, they'd have to sort it all.
Oh.
Imagine looking for all that for the one lottery ticket that had won.
Oh.
Because they thought they might get audited by the US government.
Yeah.
They've got a shed or a warehouse just full of all the lottery tickets for the 6 or 7 years they were doing this.
Wow, they're very thorough, weren't they? And I like the limited company and the investors. Yeah, it's very professional.
Very professional. And they weren't the only people doing this. There was the reason this opportunity kind of disappeared, it still exists, is that someone noticed that in some of these lotteries, 80% of the tickets were bought by just 2 groups. So there was a group of students at a university, at MIT again, who were doing this, and there was a group of old age pensioners.
Amazing.
Under these Jerry and Marge who were doing it.
I love the diversity of demographic.
The contrast, yeah, isn't that cool? I mean, same sort of thing, isn't it? They found like a little loophole, hedged their bets by buying everything. Oh, and they made $26 million over the 6 years or so they did it.
Wow, incredible.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? And like everything we said so far have been legal. That's why they're like telling you.
Yeah.
They haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah, they haven't got anything to hide.
The rules of certain because what happened was after a bit they were just doing one lottery and they changed the rules. So then they started searching for the rest of the United States. What other like local lotteries had a rule set that they could, that after a certain point would have a player edge. So a similar thing that we would do, and we never took it too far, but I know a lot of people were doing this and still are now, is on slot machines, on online casinos, they will have a similar thing where there's a jackpot, and the more people play it, the higher that jackpot gets until somebody wins it. And there is a point where that jackpot's reached a certain point where there's actually a player edge in playing the game. So people just look for that. And then the final one I want to tell you about was Barney Curley, who was a professional gambler and also a horse race owner. So he was interested in horses.
Both sides.
And he has done a bunch of stuff in his time. But the one he's most famous for, and I've actually briefly told the story before, was in 1975, where he bought a racehorse that was kind of a slow and steady one, hadn't really run yet, and then purposely put him into races he knew he would lose. And did that for a while, with the long con aim of one race later in the year, where he wanted his horse's odds to be really low, because everyone thought he was rubbish. Then when it got to the day of the race, he picked a race course that only had 2 telephone cables going into it. This was in 1975, so before mobile phones and stuff like that. He put one of them out of action. No one knows how. Someone said the suggestion is he might have cut the wire.
Yeah.
And then the other one, he got one of his acquaintances to pretend that his son was really ill or something like that on the phone.
Yeah.
And then he got all his other. He had a big team of people who'd all been given like a sealed instructions on what to do. And then at a certain time, they would open the instructions and it told them what horse to bet on. They all went into their local bookies and all kind of at the same time.
Yep.
So as to stop this spread of information going round, placed loads and loads of bets.
Yeah, because if there were delays in lots of people betting on this same horse, it would mean that the bookies would then talk to each other and say,
And
you
cut
need to
the odds,
change the
yes.
odds. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of what they were doing. But the reason why they blocked the line was they're trying to ring their compadres at the racetrack to try and find out what on earth is going on.
Right.
And so he was able to keep the information silent long enough, and this was all within 30 minutes of the race starting. So there was very little time for the bookies to react. His race went on. Yellow Sam, good name, eh, for a horse.
Oh, that's funny.
I went on and it won. So apparently the rumour is that the bookies were so miffed about this. He won, I think, the equivalent of about $1.5 million.
Yeah, on one
Euros.
race, yeah.
They gave it all in single notes, filling 108 bags. Give out the winnings.
So just in context, what is a good win as opposed to, what was it,
1.6 million.
1.6 million, yeah. Like if someone...
Well, that's set you up for life, isn't it? If you won
No,
1.6 million.
I mean, like, is that like twice as big as a normal racing win?
Like, at like a small racetrack here.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine if you'd bet more than £100, the bookies would have started questioning it.
Wow, okay.
So it was like completely ridiculous.
And how much money do you think went into it?
For them to win that amount?
Yeah, so if you say £100 is a lot, was it about 100 people all betting £1?
So I don't know the answer, but the odds would have been high, so something like 16 to 1. So to win
That amount of money.
1.6 million, you need to put down about 100,000.
Right.
And so back in those days, it was a different
Quite a
type of currency. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that I thought was really cool. And he went on and he pulled off many other coups. The latest one being in 2014, where on one day I think 3 of his horses came through and won. I think it was about 6 million. He won.
Wowzers.
So he's still been going on ever since, pulling more coups. And originally I think the bookies were quite miffed, and now they kind of celebrate him a little bit as like a
Bit of a hero.
bit of like like they bring like to encourage more people to bet. So
Yeah.
like, look at this guy,
He can do it.
And so they've named like an event after him and stuff like that at this racetrack where it happened.
That's a really
and
interesting
they kind of
piece of
embrace it a little
marketing.
bit. Yeah. There you go. That's the 5.
Wow. What a variety.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me think, oh, anyone can do it though.
Well, they're all completely different.
Yeah.
They're all about like finding
A niche.
some edge and then pushing it really hard.
Yeah. The amount of resources, so time and money, is a huge thing for all of them. And they obviously build it up, but...
Yeah. Yeah, well, especially Don Johnson, for him to negotiate these deals, he's got to be a high roller. So this is the guy who was getting the 20% on refund losses over $500,000.
Yeah.
So you've got to be really ballsy to pull some of this stuff off. But yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. And then I've got coming on, maybe in a week or two, a friend of mine who ran the main professional gambling forum I was on over 10 years ago. And I'm really looking forward to chatting to him, and hopefully we'll get some stories about actually stuff that we were involved in at the time.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll hear some stories of stuff that was going on that I didn't know was happening.
Existed, yeah.
Because the stuff that's happening at the time you're there it's so secret.
Yeah.
Because they don't want other people hearing about it and using the same opportunity. So that should be really cool. So watch out for that in the next few episodes. Well, Emma, I hope you didn't get too bored with that story.
No, they were definitely silly enough.
Awesome.
I could understand them.
Well, thanks for listening. And email us at hello@soundpreachy.com if you've got any feedback. And
Until next time.
until next time, yeah. What do you say?
Adios.
You say tune in next time, don't you, on the radio? Stream in next time? Subscribe next time? Or whatever. Well, thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Bye.